Exactly.
Mazur, chapter 67 Al-Mulk, last verse 31.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين. So what is the meaning of this verse?
You see, people think that the system of rains is quite simple, and because the water is so available to all the people all the year after year, that except for the period of drought, they do not understand the full blessing of the provision of water to them. And it becomes matter of fact, everywhere there is water. And they don't realize that it is an immense machinery, unthinkably powerful and well organized, for the provision of water to the whole of mankind by God. Even if there was no other sign of the existence of God, this single factor of the provision of water to the whole mankind would be sufficient to prove the existence of God to all who have the truth in their heart. Those who have decided not to, that's a different case altogether. And this verse also indicates that. It means that you are not even capable of getting yourself, preparing for yourself drinking water. If we made the water sink deeper, you will not be able to get water from anywhere. And the word sink deeper indicates that it is a constant supply of water which replenishes the shortage of water. So the water table does not sink below a certain level, and the water remains available at about the same table year long. But if there was a severe drought, year after year, the water table would sink so deep that it would become impossible for man to draw water and to fulfill his daily requirement of water. This is an island which is in the midst of an ocean. And when for a few weeks there was no rain, continuously there was a period of dry period, not a drought, but a dry period. You know, the talk of the whole country was, what shall we do without water? How shall we get water? And people started criticizing the government for not looking into the problem long before it occurred. But what could government do? That was the point. The government could not import the glaciers from the north, or part of the glaciers from the north. They can't purify the sea water economically to meet the requirement of the whole people of a country. It's impossible. So an island which is in the midst of an ocean cannot fulfill its own requirement despite the most advanced technology of the world they share with all the advanced nations. Europe is not, England is not behind any other scientific nation of the world today. And yet, when it comes to water, they can't do anything. This is helplessness, total helplessness. So this is the meaning, there are graces of Allah which are taken for granted. You think this happens, you never open your eyes as to how such water is provided to you. Let him translate this much and then I explain. You will be astounded to know how much goes behind the machination of provision of water. Right? Now the problem, first of all, the land is surrounded by seas, and the sea surface is around 3 times more than the land surface. is 1/4 of the total surface of the earth is covered by land and 3/4 by the sea. Right? Now this proportion is also very important. Now the requirement of water on earth is so essential that without pure clean water life could not be sustained. There could be no life on earth without a constant definite supply of pure water. Now the sea water is full of contamination and full of such acrid salts, such strong salts, that even a mouthful or two can kill a man, because if it caught purging and so many other problems, instead of giving life, the sea water would take life away rather than give it. These are the problems. Now, how can we supply water in such a state if the greatest of the scientists of this age are given this challenge? Come here, this is the problem, let's resolve it. You put all the resources at your disposal, consume them, and make a system whereby the water is first purified. No trace of any, impurification like salts, etc., are left in the water. No pollution whatsoever. Just clean, healthy water is to be made out of the sea water. Then it should be supplied to the whole surface of the earth, freely and generously, where it can feed, first of all, the lands for cultivation and the jungles for their growth and the vegetation of all sorts to appear on the surface of earth, and then for the sustenance of the whole life of the earth. And the supply should be constant. Also during not only during the monsoon period, but also without that. Now, how can any government of the world with all their might put together, all the governments of the world, with all their might put together, resolve this problem? If they spend all the resources available, they can't even purify the sea water around Britain to fulfill only the requirements of Britain. It's not possible. What a big challenge. And if the industry is made, how much would be the noise of that industry? And how much would be the power required for that industry to be consumed? How much oil would be needed? How much coal will be needed? How much electricity would be needed to lift that much of water? The entire resources of man are not sufficient to fulfill this need. There is such a noise of such industry. Only what are you doing? Just providing water, cleaning water. And how will you pump it to the mountains, the Himalayas and others? That is impossible. That we still can't do. And how will the manure provided? How would the important essential ingredients for supporting the vegetation would be obtained? It is what we call artificial manuring, is fertilization. And the fertilizers are made out of certain salts which have ammonia there to release, and some other chemicals, sulfates and ammonia, etc., which provide the most needed nitrogen for the growth of vegetation. Right? So where will it come? From where will it come? And water is first purified, then carried across to the mountains, and then shed there, poured out, for it to reach all the corners of the earth. Can you understand the nature of the problem? How impossible it is. And what do you see daily? The water of the sea is purified and lifted without us hearing any noise whatsoever. Automatically, quietly. And the winds that carry, they are rooted. Otherwise, they could go in a different direction. They are rooted in the direction of the mountains, where they get, and their moisture they carry is concentrated enough to be able to turn into small droplets, very small indeed, but they're not heavy enough to drop. So how can we bring the water back which is lifted through moistures? That is another problem. Purification of the water requires a special law governing the law of evaporation. And it is just that law which is provided, that any salt mixed in the water should not evaporate when the evaporation takes place. It should remain settled behind. Only pure water should rise. And another law created by God is that whenever the water surface releases moistures, then the moisture should also be electrified. Strong electric current should appear there. And behind them, the opposite electric current should be left. So plus charge and minus charge should be automatically done with the evaporation of water. Now how could this law come into operation by itself? If you prepare electricity sufficiently needed for the rains, the whole entire resources of man will be spent and still it will not be able to meet the requirement. Now why is electricity needed? Atmospheric electricity. You know that? When the huge clouds lifted from the ocean, they're not clouds, they're just invisible vapors in the beginning. Then they rise at a certain level, it is colder there. And when it reaches the colder surface, the moisture is condensed. Like in the winter you see the condensation on your panels, on the glasses, etc. In the window screen, on the screen of the car, you see the condensation. On the window panes, you see the concentration. So that is how it is concentrated, but into small, moist, very small, tiny droplets. How can it be turned into heavy enough drops? That is the problem. How can you generate electricity and make it reach there and work in the clouds to make the droplets? And why should electricity be needed? The reason is that electricity has a quality that when it passes through colloidal solution, it makes the colloidal solution suddenly clot into thick particles. This is a law which again has to be provided by God. Nobody else can make a law like this. The law is, when you touch the live wire, which runs, a high potential of energy, of electricity, you get a huge shock. And if you remain there for a second, the whole blood of you will be curdled. You turn black, and the blood is curdled into thick yogurt-like, blood clots. This is the clotting of the blood. Why is it done? Because the blood particles, we call red particles and white particles, they are suspended in the solution of blood like milk particles are suspended in a solution in water. And whenever electricity is passed from both sides, positive, negative, these suspended particles suddenly collide together under the influence of electricity, and then they become too heavy to be kept suspended. Then they settle down. So this is how the man dies when he is electrocuted. His blood is curdled and it settled down. Nothing is left. Even if the water circulates, it doesn't mean anything. So this is a phenomena which is employed by God to make rain. And they say it happened automatically, imagine. They are the biggest fools who think that this could happen automatically. Who made the laws, and special laws pertaining to water and evaporation and the electricity? Why should it be generated? Now, electricity is generated to such high degree that the voltage reaches hundreds of thousands, the level of hundreds of thousands potential. Ordinary electricity here is 240. And if it is 1 million or so, imagine how powerful it will become. It can jump across, hundreds of yards or even 1,000 yards sometimes. If an opposite electricity is found elsewhere, very close. So when the two clouds differently charged, one is positive, one is negative, they pass by, one is above and one is below, then very strong electric current jumps from one cloud to the other. And that is the phenomenon which makes rain. That is why during heavy rains, you see such electricity, striking sometimes the trees and rending them asunder. But the noise and the crackling of the atmospheric electricity is a phenomenon, very awe-inspiring phenomenon. All this is done for the purpose of providing matter to man. And what a blind thing he is, It seems automatically happening. And then it happens on the mountain tops, because it is not possible to have the earth watered daily, because if it were so, then the earth will be covered by clouds most often, most of the year, with the result that under that cover the greenhouse effect will be created. That is a different story. But if it is constantly covered by clouds, no vegetation will grow. Ultimately, the earth will not be worthy of life, supporting life anymore. So constant clouds all over the world are dangerous. In some small regions it's okay, but to cover the whole earth will become unmanageable for life on earth. So there have to be large areas, most of the time open to the sun. And it is the power of sun which makes the growth, which makes the vegetation and all sorts grow. And we also need sun for our survival. So if God had provided a system of direct rain providing direct rain falling upon every surface everywhere to meet the daily requirements, it would be no system. But God is wise, all wise. So He made the clouds lift to a level where extreme cold in the mountain regions would make it turn into snow rather than water. So the snow-capped mountains become the reservoir for our water supply of the year long. That is why it is the rivers who keep the water supplied. And the rivers come from the slow melting of the snow, which is so beautifully regulated that the whole year long all the population of the world gets its water supplies all right. And what about the fertilizers? How do they come? Just pure water is not sufficient. Particularly in the mountains, if the water continues to flow in torrents, it would wash away all the rich soil and nothing will be able to grow there. So the high mountains do require a constant supply of fresh fertilizers. You know how they are made? It is electricity which creates them. Due to electricity, a profound chemical action and reactions take place in the air between gases. And God has calculated them to result in the provision of fertilizers. So electricity on the one hand precipitates water for us, and on the other hand prepares highly concentrated fertilizers for the surface of the mountains, where the water comes and brings its own fertilizer along with it. You see? In one day, this phenomenon creates more fertilizers than the whole factories, man-made factories of the world can make in 1 year. See? And this is automatic. Imagine. And the falls there, then the mountain trees and things. It's a fantastic phenomenon. And the system of organizing their flow in every direction. So all year long, the whole of the world gets its share. And even those places which do not get full share for the whole world year-long supply, they somehow get enough water, like desert of Arabia. In the oasis, they do get water. And other scientific laws are made operative there, which I don't want to discuss here because already the time is over. So this is the meaning of that small verse you quoted. You brainless people, why don't you think? Why don't you ponder that even if we made your water, ordinary water, sink deeper, not totally disappear, you will not be able to do anything about it. So it's a reminder for us to ponder over the system of watering by God. And I don't know how the mullahs read the Quran and go over and forget about it and sleep after having a good heavy meal. Right? But the translation can be only made tomorrow, inshallah. Right? Assalamu alaikum.
لقد انتهى وقت برنامجنا اليوم، وسنقدم الترجمة في الحلقة القادمة إن شاء الله. وحتى ذلك الحين نستودعكم الله ونقول لكم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم.